So I, 25 female, met this guy Will 35 months ago. He's really sweet and loving. He has a toddler with his baby mama, 27. The problem I have is that whenever we plan on going out for a date, Will's baby mama would call and demand he take their son to stay with him. They never married, so there's no legal custody arrangement in place. Every time we planned to go out, she'd call and demand that Will come to pick their son up to stay with him, for hours, resulting in our plans being cancelled. I told him his baby mama has been doing this deliberately. He said he noticed too, but can't tell her no because if he refuses to take their son, she won't allow him to see him for a whole month as a punishment. So I told Will he has to end this because it's affecting how our relationship is progressing, and he said he'll try. Last week, he invited me out for dinner at the restaurant. I was excited because he told me he was already at the restaurant, so I thought, his baby mama doesn't know, so she won't wreck our plans. I got dressed nicely and did my hair, and just took care of myself really well, looking forward to some quality time together. However, when I arrived at the restaurant, I saw Will and his son there. I felt rage and disappointment washing over me. Will saw me and waved me to come closer, but I turned around and walked out. He followed me outside, trying to explain, but I decided to go home and the date was obviously cancelled. Later, he texted explaining that his baby mama did it again. He said he didn't know how she figured out we were going out and demanded he takes their son for the night. He said he didn't want to be punished, but neither wanted to cancel our date, so he brought his son to the restaurant, and I was wrong to turn around and walk out. I told him I was sick of this woman dictating our life and being intentionally hurtful, but he said I ruined our night after he tried to compromise and he didn't appreciate that. Maybe I did, but I just wanted a quiet dinner for us both, and I'm disappointed that he once again let his baby mama bully him into doing what she wanted. But am I the idiot? Not the idiot. But just because they weren't married doesn't mean he shouldn't have a custody order, and it seems he needs one because he lets baby mama run his life. He needs to file for custody, but maybe he hasn't because he doesn't want to pay child support. Do you really want a relationship with someone who didn't know he could get a court order requiring her to allow him to see his children, who didn't work on purpose because he's avoiding child support? Never choose a weak person to build a life with. He should have put a custody plan in place long ago. Exactly, not paying child support has to be the real reason why he hasn't fought for custody. OP, I'm guessing that Will is leaning on you to play nice because he thinks you're more reasonable and easier to push over than his ex. Stick to your boundaries. Clearly, the situation isn't bad for him. Don't enable him. This is not normal. Don't let him manipulate you. I'm really concerned he seems to share his everyday activities with his ex. How would she otherwise know you have a date? If he can't speak up for himself and tell his ex no, then he's not ready for a new relationship. Also, you can arrange custody plans without being married, and I suggest he gets one fixed soon, so she can't just withhold the kid as she wants. There really is no excuse, he just doesn't bother. Everyone's the idiot here. I don't know the situation with his ex, but he needs to get custody rights, not custody whims. That being said, there may be external circumstances that put all the power in her control. It's his kid. You're dating a guy with a kid. The kid comes first. Don't date a guy with a kid if you don't like that. It would be a bigger red flag if he wasn't putting his kid first. Blended families are hard. The boyfriend appears to be trying his hardest to be a present parent. He just needs to formalize it. So the bio mum isn't controlling access to his child and his life. My 24 female husband, 24, and I are visiting my family. My husband, kids, and I were getting ready to go to our room for bed when my parents started acting really awkward, like something was off. I asked them what was wrong, and my mum quietly told me that my husband should sleep on the couch in the living room. I was a bit shocked because, why? Apparently my dad doesn't feel comfortable, so I called her and my dad weird and got my husband to ignore them. We finally put our kids to sleep and are getting ready to sleep when my mom barges into the room while we're changing and says she doesn't want us in the same room alone in her house. My husband is freaking terrified at this point because he was in the middle of changing, so he leaves for the couch, and my mom says she's sorry, but she's not in the mood to deal with my dad's complaining all night. I pointed out that my younger sister, 21, and her husband have slept in the same room at their house multiple times, and she's never said anything, and she goes, "Well, your husband is white, so your dad feels weird." I was over it, so I said fine. I got up at like 4 a.m. to drink some water and I saw my husband wide awake just lying on the couch. He said the couch was uncomfortable, which yes, it is, so I sat down next to him and we both accidentally fell asleep. I woke up later to my mom freaking out. She was whisper yelling so she doesn't wake up my dad and asked if we're that codependent on each other that we can't spend one night alone. I tried explaining that it was a mistake, but she kept calling me disrespectful and said that I was selfish, etc. I was upset, but my son called for me, so we ended our conversation. Now I'm wondering if I really am the idiot in this situation. My mom says I am because I was selfish, disrespectful, and completely disregarded how difficult her life would have become if my dad had found us. My whole thing is that it was an accident. I'm 24. My dad is being weird, and my sister's husband doesn't have to do this, so why does mine? Am I the idiot? Edit. My family and I are South Asian. Not the idiot. What? What kind of shenanigans is this? I don't see why your dad has any issues with you sleeping in the same room with your husband. You guys have kids, so clearly intimacy has happened. And why is it any different that he's white? Do they treat your kids differently because they're half white? If they do, you need to step up and protect your children from your bigoted parents. And step up for your husband too. Seriously, if this were me, I'd be packing up my family and going to stay in a hotel for the remainder of the visit. And then rethink any future visits from here on out. They are married and expected to sleep apart, and for what? The colour of a husband's skin? Have they always been like this, or is this something that OP is just learning about their parents? You are the idiot. Not for sleeping on the couch, but for not standing up for your husband against the blatant discrimination shown here. Plus, your mum stormed in when you and your husband were changing, which your husband clearly said he felt awkward about. OP, leave the house and refuse to come back or visit without getting an apology to your husband and clear rules that are equal for you and your sister. Excuse me? You are adults married to each other with 2 children, and your father can't handle that you're still all of these things while in his house. My God, and somehow your mother is responsible for enforcing his ridiculous rule. Oh, and if he gets upset, that's her fault. So your father is an idiot, and your mother has become emotionally immune to it from years of trying to survive such raging idiotry. Good grief. Maybe this is your cue to create a bit of distance here, or stay in a hotel, or invite them to your house and have father sleep on your couch. My son, teen, is autistic and very blunt. You ask him a question, and he tells the truth. It's never something I've tried to correct. I don't think it necessarily needs correcting. However, it really upsets some family members. The biggest thing recently was my brother and his wife are having a baby, and she mentioned wanting to name the baby Michaeliha, which is a mouthful. She then asked our opinions. My son told her it was spelled weird and didn't like it. She got super upset and started crying. I don't think he did anything wrong. She asked a question and got an answer. He kind of shrugged it off and said he wanted to go home. We went home. That annoyed them even more. It's been a few tidbits. People asking about clothes and hair. He's always honest. With the whole baby thing, everything seems much tenser. Because of that, now whenever someone asks a question, he asks them if they want him to lie or not. They don't like this either. My brother contacted me telling me I need to discipline my son when he's rude and teach him that being truthfully kind and just being truthful is different. I'm not sure how to explain that one. I disagree. He realized they were getting upset, so now he clarifies before he answers. It's working out well for him. My husband appreciates it a lot more. LOL. This has obviously devolved in a fight because why wouldn't it be in this family? Usually arguments have at least some form of a split, but with this one, it's just me against them, which makes me second guess myself. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. You're raising him with the perception that social niceties don't matter, and you're doing him a huge disservice. You're failing him as a parent, and you're a huge idiot for letting your hang-ups about how things should keep you from raising your son for how the world is. The situation you describe will be repeated again and again in your son's life, and he's going to find it hard to fit in and keep friends if he's unable to wrap his head around something as simple as the social white lie. It doesn't matter his diagnosis, society doesn't give a crap. Help him by equipping him with the tools he needs instead of dooming him to social failure because it makes you feel better somehow. Everyone's the idiot here except your son. They, as his family, need to be more understanding. You, as his mother, are failing him if you don't help teach him how to exist in a world he doesn't move comfortably in. Teach him appropriate coping mechanisms, of which "do you want me to lie" is not one in most cases. If he asks his boss a question like that, he'll get written up or fired. Not the idiot. Your brother and sister-in-law are the idiots for saddling a poor child with that name. It will be spelled wrong for all eternity. Can you imagine having to give that name to someone verbally? Jeez, it would take several minutes to walk them through it. I'm not on any kind of spectrum, and that name would definitely make me be equally as honest. Where I'm from, there's a tradition where parents of the groom buy the bride's wedding dress, and the parents of the bride buy the suit of the groom. My brother is getting married to his fiancée in 7 months, and they're now looking for their wedding outfits. Since it's that time, my parents and her parents are about to lay down the budget and conditions. Her parents claim they don't have a big budget. My brother said he's fine and he'll settle with a cheap suit from Zara. The bride said she didn't mind either. The bride has tried on wedding dresses and we've seen them, but none of them are wedding appropriate. Some of the dresses she's tried on seem like they're more of a way for her to show off how special and different she is, but it's not anything near to a classic wedding gown. They don't even look like wedding gowns, since one she's tried on is lavender, another one is beige with some silver leaves on it. They're not expensive and they're way below the budget my parents have set, but my parents have told her that if she doesn't find something more appropriate within the budget, they can raise it as long as she gets something that looks like a wedding dress. The bride has said no repeatedly and says she'll choose one of the 2 dresses she has in mind. My mom is extremely mad about it and said that if she's paying, then she has a say. The bride and my brother have said that parents offering to pay doesn't mean they get to hijack what the couple wears. I disagree with my brother and bride, and so did my parents. The couple has decided to drop the tradition of in-laws paying for the outfits and claiming we are the idiots. They decided to drop that tradition because we tried to use our money against them to hijack their wedding. I didn't see it that way, since we didn't use the money as an excuse. It's literally tradition. And since her parents settled for something cheaper and decided that for my brother to wear a Zara suit, why should my parents' stance be any different to the bride's dress? Am I the idiot? Okay, I don't want to sound like I don't respect other cultures, but this seems like a tradition that needs to be dropped, in my opinion. You are the idiot, all of you, for pressuring someone to get something you want and, yeah, holding money over their heads. Again, I hate to diminish your traditions and culture, but that kind of stuff is really not something we need to perpetuate in this day and age. You are the idiot, but you knew this before you asked. Your future sister-in-law is going to be the bride. The whole point of a wedding dress is to show off the bride and how special she is. That's literally the point. We don't call it the family's special day, we call it the bride's special day. Therefore, she should be comfortable with how she looks and feels, not how much your parents like her dress. Bride's parents didn't even pick the suit. Your brother did. Get over yourself. Tradition isn't a reason to be obnoxious and overbearing. Agree, it's about them. It's not about you or your parents' picture of an appropriate dream wedding. Don't like the dress? Don't go. But it's not your decision to make, and neither is it your parents' choice. Don't offer payment if you're going to hold it over someone's head and try to corral them into doing what you picture in your head. Gifts should be intended to make the receiver happy. I, female 28, had my daughter pre-tween when I was quite young. Her father, 33, bailed, and I didn't have any family to support me, so the first few years were tough. I took an extra 2 years to graduate college, and I had to put my career goals and ambitions on hold. Now, I don't regret any of this, and I love my daughter, but I wasn't able to give her the life I wanted to have in the first few years. Through some miracle of luck, I was able to get her into an amazing private school in our city with almost full coverage of financial aid. While there were some out-of-pocket costs plus after-school care costs, I wanted to set my daughter up for success and saw this as one way. She's been at this school her whole school life and loves it. Last year, her father moved to the city we live in and reached out. He said he wanted to be a part of her life and didn't want to miss out on any more moments. We initially tried to handle things together without the courts, but he was unhappy about the slow progress and decided to take me to court for visitation. He asked for 50-50 custody and was awarded it, but now has to pay child support, including school tuition, which has led to this issue. He initially agreed to pay for private education in court. Because her father makes a great salary, our financial aid is no longer eligible and is now only a fraction of what we previously had. This was taken into consideration during our custody case, and her father now has to pay 70% of the yearly tuition, based on our income ratio and other factors. This worked out for a while until last month when he reached out and brought up enrolling her into the public school system. I asked why, and he told me that since we were both parents, we both got a say in making decisions for her. He claims that since I made the decision to enroll her before he was around, now that he was involved, it should be re-evaluated together, parent to parent. I told him that with all the changes she'd experienced this past year, keeping this one constant in her life is only beneficial and supported by her therapist and other support systems. I told him if he was unhappy with the arrangement, he could take it up with the courts, but I wasn't going to do it parent to parent. He called me difficult, but when I asked if it was for financial reasons, he said no, and it was about making decisions together. He chose not to pursue it in court, but when she returned from her father's last week, she was on the verge of tears and asked me if she would have to move schools. Am I the idiot for sending my daughter to a private school, even though her father doesn't want me to? Not the idiot, and honestly shocked he got 50-50 custody when he was entirely absent for so many years. What was the judge thinking? She's basically never met this man, and then all of a sudden when she's this age, she has to spend half the time at his house? Honestly, that's very, very traumatic. And now he's trying to switch schools? Stand your ground, OP. You're an amazing mother who's tried to do nothing but the best for your daughter. I think that Dad is now trying to assert some authority in a decision made years ago for your daughter's benefit. He was a little to no show up until recently, and I wholeheartedly agree with you keeping her at that school. She clearly loves it there, and more importantly, she's going to get a bloody good education. Dad is the idiot for so many reasons other than the schooling. He left his daughter and came back when it was comfortable for him. He took you to court because he has rights. You did well in sending your daughter to the best available school. Appeal the 50-50 custody ruling. Push for full custody. Your daughter coming home in tears and asking if she has to change schools is more than enough reason. If your daughter has the stomach for it, allow her to testify about these events.